Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 45. Crack in the Sky. The rotten monsters surrounding them hissed and the sound converged into an ear-piercing stream of noise. Within an instant, they lunged at the two people. A resentment tsunami that carried animal bones instantly engulfed Xiang Shu and Chen Xing as if it was crushing Mount Tai. Chen Xing! Chen Xing! A voice rang out. Xiao Shan had come. Xiao Shan! Take him away! While Xiang Shu resisted the enemy's attack, he shouted at the top of his lungs. I can't leave! Chen Xing shouted in a hurry. You'll die without the heart lamp! Chen Xing forcibly urged the heart lamp within that darkness. Mana vibrated constantly as it rushed left and right madly within his body, causing his already damaged heart to once again twinge with acute pain. However, Xiang Shu was relying solely on the protection of this light. The heavy sword he wielded relied on it to shine brightly and resist the waves of attacks from the living animal corpses time and again. If Chen Xing withdrew his mana right now, Xiang Shu would be swallowed by resentment in an instant. You knew everything! Che Lufeng roared madly. Throughout all these years, you knew everything. With vengeance in his heart, Che Lufeng flung his first whip. An indistinct shadow that brushed by emerged within the dark resentment. It was a scene of Xiang Shu standing in the tent in front of Chen Xing as he gave Che Lufeng a slap. Within the twinkling of an eye, a blinding light burst out of Xiang Shu's hands, blocking Che Lufeng's whip. An autumn scenery under Chi Le Chuan appeared. They were sitting by a stream, and together with Zhou Zhen, the three of them sat fishing side by side. Yes, Xiang Shu said. I knew everything. You only chose Zhou Zhen because you couldn't get what you wanted from me. Che Lufeng was suddenly taken aback. Xiang Shu brandished his sword horizontally to parry and pushed Che Lufeng out. Xiang Shu, but so what? You're not satisfied to just be my anda? Che Lufeng, I said this before, no matter who I am within this life, I will always regard you as my family. Che Lufeng cried out like he had gone mad, Shulukong! You're a liar! Countless farewells in an instant, Che Lufeng saw by the lake the scene of Xiang Shu's back as he urged a horse to leave that emerged within the resentment. Xiang Shu shouted angrily as well, wake up! Che Lufeng! The you right now has already become a monster. The heavy sword burst with an intense light that dispelled the thick fog. Memories flooded Che Lufeng's mind with a bang. On the plains illuminated by the brilliant sunlight, Xiang Shu was riding a horse as he looked back at Che Lufeng. He was smiling while whistling at him, and this scene made Che Lufeng unable to swing his whip again for a moment. Zhou Zhen should have been the one you entrusted yourself to, Xiang Shu said. I told you that long ago. He's already dead. Che Lufeng gritted his teeth as he choked out his words. And you didn't even let me avenge him. Xiang Shu roared angrily, it's already over. All that hatred, you nodded back then too to admit that it was all over. Che Lufeng shouted madly within the resentment. You didn't let me avenge him, and you weren't even willing to, on his behalf. Shulukong! You liar! I'll kill you myself! Chen Xing urged the heart lamp a few times, but the resentment was truly too strong. It kept countering the heart lamp. He just wanted to get a little closer and dragged that iron chain with all his might. Xiao Shan rushed over and kept striking the iron chain with his claws, but it didn't even budge an inch. Soon after, an enormous object shot over from the resentment cloud. Chen Xing immediately hugged Xiao Shan. The two of them rolled on the spot to avoid the tail that violently swept over. It was the living corpse of a giant black snake, currently shooting over towards them from the surging black fog to kill them. Xiao Shan let out a mad shout. Just as he was about to rush forward to fight as if his life were on the line, Chen Xing abruptly seized his collar with his chained hand and dragged Xiao Shan behind him. Then, a blinding light burst from his heart. It circulated from his heavenly pool a cup ointment to heavenly spring, then past marsh at the crook and inner palace, gathered in his palm, converged within his middle rushing a cup ointment, then he pointed at the darkness. With a whoosh, the intense light suddenly seemed to take on concrete form and pierced through the darkness like a sharp sword. The snake corpse cried out in pain, rolling about as it tried to dodge. That light had converged into a beam, and without losing its momentum, passed through layers of thick fog and illuminated Simu Wei, who was high above. Simu Wei immediately flew back to avoid it. Suddenly, Xiao Shan saw the item that Simu Wei was holding in his hand and was stunned. Chen Xing was taken aback as well. He remembered what Liu Ying had said when they were in Karasha. That antler staff might be the horns that had been cut off from the deer god's head. Chen Xing shouted without regard for anything else, "Xiao Shan!" But he was too late. Xiao Shan struggled so hard he tore the martial robe that covered half his body, and the soft rip of the cloth could be heard. Then he rushed high up. On the other side of the battlefield, Xiao Shan leapt up high, eyes filled with humiliation. He had seen Liu Ying's horns in the hands of his enemy reduced to being used like a toy. His eyes turned bloodshot, and he roared loudly. Simu Wei cleanly swung out the staff. It struck Xiao Shan's waist, brutally smacking him down to the ground. Blood was streaming down the corners of Xiao Shan's mouth from the impact, yet he crawled up again in an instant to attempt another lunge. Simu Wei brandished the staff horizontally in front of him and used it to hit Xiao Shan on his forehead, beating him down again from a place about 1 zhang high. Xiao Shan lunged again. Simu Wei drew out a dagger. Xiao Shan! The moment Chen Xing saw Simu Wei take out the dagger, he felt all the blood in his body surge upwards. Xiang Shu saw that their lives were in imminent peril, so he could only give up on Lufeng to go save them. After losing the power of the heart lamp, his movements were bogged down within the resentment. With every breath he took, the resentment seemed to carry with it a piercing chill that collided madly within his body. An intense guilt enveloped him. But Lufeng didn't allow Xiang Shu to get away, he had already lunged over. However, right at that moment, a mad shout rang out again within the resentment. Another living corpse rushed over from the back and hugged Lufeng in a vice-like grip. With two hands clasping it, Lufeng's head was actually twisted off. "Yuduo!" Xiang Shu shouted. Lufeng cried out in a frenzy. He entwined his bone whip around Yuduo's body and brutally wrung him with it within the darkness, then ripped it away harshly. Yuduo's body was torn into shreds, but his head was still biting onto Lufeng's shoulder, and he bit down so hard that Lufeng's shoulder blade was torn apart. Xiang Shu found his chance. He swung his blade with a horizontal strike and sent Lufeng flying with this hit. Xiang Shu finally rushed over to Chen Xing and pushed him away. Just when he was about to take on Simu Wei, Lufeng had already dealt with Yuduo and emerged within the black fog. With one hand facing Xiang Shu, he twisted it at a slight angle. In a flash, the animal carcasses that surrounded them all turned into white bones. Their rotten flesh drifted amidst the resentment, and their bones sunk into the ground. Then they began connecting one after another, turning into countless bony thorns that flew out from the ground. "Be careful!" Chen Xing shouted. Xiang Shu was in midair and had nowhere to jump off, so he could only block forcefully with his heavy sword. Bony thorns that could blot out the sky flew out of the ground and firmly locked him within. Xiao Shan fell from high above and into the thicket of bony thorns akin to a blade mountain. His shoulders, arms, and thighs were all pierced by the bony thorns in an instant. Chen Xing! Xiao Shan struggled to raise his claws. When he looked down at his body, his gaze turned blank. Simu Wei's voice rang out slowly, "I'll be taking the exorcist away. Lufeng, I'll leave the rest to you. The debt that Zhou Zhen owns our lord must be repaid in full by you. Remember to send the rest of the Qi Le Chuan corpses to Huanmo Palace." Xiao Shan, Xiao Shan let out a guttural roar as he approached his demise. He kept struggling on the bony thorns, his blood trickling down endlessly. In the next moment, the resentment in the surroundings suddenly turned even more intense. It congregated into a whirlpool and swept fiercely towards Xiao Shan. Chen Xing had already lost his mind. He roared, "Lufeng! Lufeng walked towards Xiang Shu, who was bound by a cluster of bony thorns. He took down the bow on his back, knocked a bone arrow on it, and aimed it at Xiang Shu, who was in the cage. "And Lufeng murmured. Xiang Shu stared at Lufeng in a daze. But right at the last moment, Lufeng's gaze seemed to clear up a little. His hand pulling the taut bow trembled a little, but he could never release the arrow. A teardrop actually rolled down from his eyes. Chen Xing finally lost it. Immense strength burst forth from nowhere, and he swung the crushed stone pillar that weighed more than 60 jin connected to his chains, making it fly through the air. "Ruren dog!" Chen Xing roared with utter indignation. "The one who should die is you." This was an extremely rare moment of desperation in which Chen Xing was dominated by rage. Lufeng could finally witness this moment. What he got in return in addition to that mad roar was a giant stone that brutally smashed into the back of his head. Xiang Shu. Lufeng didn't expect Chen Xing to actually mount a sneak attack on him. After all, he was too far away, and his fighting capabilities were so weak that it was negligible. And it was even less likely for him to expect Chen Xing to actually use the heavy stone as a weapon. His cyclone counterattack was so powerful it could shatter the skies. It smashed Lufeng from 5 steps away with a muffled thud. Lufeng's head cracked apart from the impact, and his head sank into his shoulders. The white bone cage collapsed in an instant. Xiang Shu wielded his sword in hand and shouted, "Quick!" Resentment first turned even thicker, then it all disappeared with a whoosh. Before Chen Xing could understand what had happened, he quickly activated the heart lamp, only to see the heavy sword in Xiang Shu's hand shine with a blinding light as it was placed against Lufeng's chest. "And Xiang Shu choked, "Sleep ba. After you sleep, it'll be okay." Immediately after, Xiang Shu cried out bitterly. With his sword against the staggering Lufeng, he dove down fast, and pierced through Lufeng's abdomen. His body was cut along the wound that Chen Xing had sutured for him, and the blade tore through his lower back accompanied by the white light of the heart lamp. Lufeng's body was like a kite with its string cut. He flew straight out with the pungent stench of rotten blood. Chen Xing suddenly felt as if his heart was being twisted. With the heart lamp's power, his and Xiang Shu's souls seemed to be connected at this moment. He felt an enormous sorrow since the dawn of time attack him, making him shed uncontrollable tears. "Xiang Shu!" Chen Xing choked. Lufeng kept twitching as he laid on the ground. He reached out to the sky with one hand. On his head that had sunken into his shoulders, his lips moved as if he wanted to say something, yet he couldn't speak. Xiang Shu slowly turned around, and, along with Chen Xing, looked at Xiao Shan lying on the ground. The boy was struggling to rise up. "Xiao Shan!" Chen Xing dragged his chains and the stone pillar as he arduously walked over. Yet Xiao Shan slowly got up with the 2 steel claws in his hands. The endless stream of resentment that had still been curling in the sky were all sucked into the claws. Kangsheng Yuli turned pitch black. It flickered with a cold glint, just like to the Senluo Wangxiang after it was refined by resentment. Similarly, Xiao Shan was like the Feng Qianjun then. Both his eyes were bloodshot and his body was entwined with resentment as he stared at Simu Wei standing high above. Crap, was Chen Xing's last thought. How on earth did this kid learn to use this magic treasure? Liu Ying couldn't have taught him how to, right? Simu Wei flicked his left hand and a pitch-black shield appeared. "Really interesting, what you wield is also." Xiao Shan waved his first claw. The black phantom of the ancient dragon god appeared behind him, a vaguely audible cry of a dragon ringing out. Xiang Shu turned around and pressed Chen Xing onto the ground. Chen Xing's chains shook, and when it brushed across the claw's chi, it was silently sliced apart in mid-air. Before Simu Wei could finish his sentence, he saw the mountains, earth, and even the entire piece of sky get sliced like pieces of paper. His shield was cut into 3 neat sections. His sturdy black breastplate misaligned, and he lost his balance, his entire body above his shoulders falling backward. The ridges and peaks deep within the Yin Mountains slumped, then fell with a thundering bang. Simu Wei, divine weapon. Xiao Shan took a step forward and swung out his second claw. Simu Wei's helmet and head were both torn into shreds, scattering in the wind with a whoosh. The place where he stood collapsed, and cleanly sliced slabs of mirror-like stone pieces crashed down. The moment the mountain ridges behind turned into slippery slopes, they were sliced apart by the second claw once again. Like stormy waves, they crashed violently towards both the north and south, resulting in an earth-shaking avalanche. Xiao Shan slightly raised his left claw and drew a circle with his right, utilizing the move Grey Wolf Chases the Moon. Just when he was about to rush forward, Chen Xing had already sneaked over and successfully approached Xiao Shan from behind. Expel! Chen Xing roared angrily next to his ears, then mustered all the strength he had left. He covered Xiao Shan's eyes with his left hand and pressed against Xiao Shan's lower back with his right. A bright white light burst out, piercing through Xiao Shan's consciousness. Kangsheng Yuli fell to the ground with a clang, and the resentment dissipated. Xiao Shan lost consciousness, and his head drooped. Chen Xing collapsed into the snow, all his energy sapped. The avalanche had covered the entire battlefield, making it seem as if nothing had happened. Snow started drifting down. Giant broken antlers jutted out from the ground, towering aloft like a lonely tombstone in this silent world. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing turned his head sideways and looked at Xiang Shu, who was looking up at the sky as he laid on the snow. Are you okay? Xiang Shu didn't speak. He turned his head to look at Chen Xing. Chen Xing's hand moved, then he struggled to move over. Xiang Shu's fingers twitched and grasped his hand. Xiao Shan. Chen Xing turned over and got up, exhaling in exhaustion. With his hair a mess, he inspected Xiao Shan's wounds. The bone thorns had pierced through his legs and arms, but fortunately he was small enough it didn't injure his chest. Chen Xing grabbed a handful of snow and applied it to Xiao Shan's face, waking him up. He opened his eyes, baffled, and grit his teeth in pain the moment he shifted. Chen Xing motioned for him to not move around recklessly and bandaged him up simply for now. Xiao Shan pointed at the antlers in the distance, so Chen Xing went to retrieve them. Xiao Shan held them in his arms sadly and refused to let go. Chen Xing then rubbed Xiao Shan's head. At that moment, a sound rang out again in the distance. Xiang Shu got up slowly. After all those fierce battles in succession, he was thoroughly spent and didn't have much strength left anymore. His body was covered in wounds as he limped slowly towards the end of the snowfield. Lufeng's broken body had Xiang Shu's heavy sword piercing through it. He laid on the ground, his rotten blood already soaking a small area. Xiang Shu knelt down in front of Lufeng. He held Lufeng's hand with his left hand and plucked away the fingers that were still gripping onto the bow tightly, while he covered the back of Lufeng's hand with his right. Xiao Shan looked at Xiang Shu, then at Chen Xing. Chen Xing shook his head to signal that he couldn't go over right now, then made a shh gesture. Leave him alone for a while, Chen Xing sighed again and whispered. Xiang Shu couldn't stop trembling. He buried his face in Lufeng's hand and sobbed in a low voice. Wind started blowing, swirling up snowflakes that hid the sky and covered the earth. Go ba! Xiang Shu's trembling voice was carried over by the wind. Sholokong will abide by the oath we made as Andas, I will avenge you. It's over, it's really over now, you'll never wake up again, Lufeng, but you'll rest in peace, forever, forever. Lu Ying. Xiao Shan seemed to sense something and said, Lu Ying. Do you also want to take revenge for Lu Ying? Chen Xing lowered his head a little and asked Xiao Shan. Xiao Shan didn't reply and looked into the distance. The two of them stood in the snow for a very, very long time, until Xiang Shu dragged his tired body out with lethargic steps from the valley. His tall, robust body was covered with frost and snow, and he was carrying Lufeng's misshapen corpse wrapped up in cloth with both arms. On his back was the keepsake he shared with Lufeng when they became sworn brothers, the longbow. Let's go. Simu Wei, dressed in a suit of black armor, stood high up on the mountain to the south of the Yin Mountains as he watched the three people leave from afar. Nightfall, in a cave on the Yin Mountains. The three of them were constantly on the move for 3 days, and after experiencing so many rounds of violent battles in succession, they all looked like savages now. Xiang Shu started a bonfire in the cave. Xiao Shan was already sound asleep. Where are we going? Chen Xing asked. Back to Karakoram. Xiang Shu looked up from the bonfire and glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing nodded in response. Too many things have happened here, they had to go back to consider at length their options. Chen Xing said, Lufeng shouldn't be able to be revived. I know, Xiang Shu said. He has been dead ever since he drank the medicine Zhou Zhen gave him and massacred the entire Akele's tribe. Chen Xing recalled the scene before Lufeng transformed into a living corpse and said a little sadly, at the very beginning, he didn't want to drink that cup of wine. Xiang Shu had already heard Chen Xing narrate it once, yet he asked again, did he mention me then? He shouted for Zhou Zhen, Chen Xing said, and also shouted for you. At that moment, I think he must have been terrified. Xiang Shu didn't reply. He stared at Lufeng's corpse that was wrapped in cloth. Xiao Shan turned over in front of the fire, wanting to scratch his wounds from discomfort. Chen Xing quickly grabbed his hand, afraid that he would scratch off the places that Chen Xing had bandaged. Xiang Shu said, in a daze, after Zhou Zhen died, the entire Qi Le Chuan knew that only I could convince Lufeng not to avenge him anymore. From that day onwards, I accompanied Lufeng for a whole month. I know he wanted me to accompany him in Zhou Zhen's place, but he didn't dare ask. Once he did, I would leave. Chen Xing said, you wouldn't leave. Xiang Shu answered, I would have. He added a little firewood to the bonfire and whispered, I can't give him what Zhou Zhen did, because I don't like him that way. I can only be andas with him. Chen Xing didn't know how to respond for a moment either. After thinking about it, he said, you have treated him very well. Yet Xiang Shu answered, no, I let him down. Chen Xing didn't know how to console Xiang Shu, but he could sense that at this moment, he just needed to listen to Xiang Shu and accompany him by his side, and it would all be right. Just like how Xiang Shu had accompanied Lufeng when Zhou Zhen died. Perhaps you just don't know what it means to like someone that way. I do, Xiang Shu said softly, I understand it very well. Don't compare me to Tuobayan. I know what it feels like to like someone, and I also know that I really don't like my sworn brother that way. For me, there's nothing that can be done about that. With that, Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing. The blazing fire within the cave flickered. Chen Xing leaned against the cave wall and looked down at the zhang drum that they had retrieved from Simu Wei. They had 2 magic treasures now. Xiang Shu, Chen Xing whispered. Sorry. Xiang Shu seemed a little confused. He stared at Chen Xing, baffled. What are you apologizing for? Chen Xing smiled bitterly. If it wasn't for me, perhaps you wouldn't have encountered all this. Xiang Shu's expression turned angry. Chen Xing was at a loss for a moment, staring blankly at him. So that's how you think? Xiang Shu frowned, studying Chen Xing as if he didn't know who he was anymore. What kind of person do you take me as? In your heart, am I that much of a stupid and ignorant fool? Xiao Shan was all muddled from sleeping. Chen Xing was afraid of waking him up, so he quickly motioned to Xiang Shu to keep it down a little. Xiang Shu sighed, evidently not in the mood to argue with Chen Xing. He glanced at Xiao S. Han, yet he couldn't help but say, if it weren't for you, the situation would only be worse. Ba. Chen Xing, N. In the past few days, Chen Xing has always been thinking about what Xiang Shu had said. If it wasn't because of him, perhaps King Akele wouldn't have died. If Xiang Shu hadn't gone north, Cle Chuan wouldn't have encountered this sudden calamity, but what should come would eventually come. Without him, when the unforeseen event occurred, then even if the 16 Hu people hid in Karakoram, they wouldn't have been able to defend the city. I want to do something for you. Chen Xing still felt a little guilty and said, is there anything I can do? He looked at Xiang Shu seriously. Originally, he had wanted to talk to him about the future, about Shihai, so that he would shift his focus from his sorrows to revenge, yet Xiang Shu remained silent for a while before saying, do you know how to perform transcendence? Transcendence? Chen Xing said. I don't. Xiang Shu said, confer Che Lufeng a sky burial. In this world, you're an exorcist and also Cle Chuan's benefactor. If you think it's too much of an imposition, then... Chen Xing could roughly understand what Xiang Shu was trying to convey. Che Lufeng was already dead, so all of this had come to an end as well. After taking this corpse back to Karakoram, a sinner like him would only be given an earth burial, and the deceased Akele's people had also all been killed already. Xiang Shu thought that he was the only one who can pardon Che Lufeng of his sins, or admit that Che Lufeng's actions weren't done of his own volition but because he had been possessed by the devil. Give him a sky burial ba, Chen Xing said at last. Any method would be fine for one's return. Death is an immutable fact. Thank you, Xiang Shu replied in earnest. This is the last thing I can do for him. Xiang Shu bowed down and picked up Che Lufeng's body, then left the cave. Chen Xing thought, now? But bringing him back to Cle Chuan would only stir up some minor issues, so he went to the cave's entrance. The first glimmer of light could already be seen in the night sky. Coincidentally, there was a sky burial platform right on the mountain summit. Next. Xiang Shu thought for a bit and said to Chen Xing. Chen Xing, Xiang Shu, I don't think I should go back to Karakoram with you after all. Another year had passed. Chen Xing's time was whittling away, and he had to leave. He couldn't waste any more time in Cle Chuan. Xiang Shu remained silent for a while before saying, let's talk about it again after I come down. Xiang Shu trekked up to the summit. Chen Xing didn't follow along. He covered Xiao Shan with a robe and stood halfway up the mountain, staring at the vultures flying high above in the distance. At the first ray of dawn, he heard Xiang Shu sing the tile morning song at the mountain peak. The faint music traveled over. Groups of vultures flew to the sky burial platform one after another. The morning song stopped, and more vultures came over. Chen Xing stood in silence. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard behind, and at the next moment, a hand tucked in iron gloves covered his mouth. Chen Xing immediately struggled, his eyes widening, but his eyes were covered by another hand and his vision went black before he was dragged into the darkness. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 46. Cry for help. Woo. Woo. The horse ride was a bumpy one. Chen Xing had both hands tied behind his back and was strapped onto the back of the horse by the waist. Clinks of metal plates could be heard. Simu Wei, dressed in a suit of black armor, rushed out of the Yin Mountains with Chen Xing. They traveled along the commercial route outside the Great Wall and turned eastwards. Simu Wei had abducted him. Within the blink of an eye, he had already urged his horse to gallop several hundreds of miles. They had even passed by Cle Chuan along the way, but he didn't go up north along the road to the river to enter the Great Wall, but instead continued heading east. At noon, Simu Wei threw Chen Xing on the ground, loosened his ropes, then threw him a jerky biscuit and casually pointed at a stream not far away. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu will come and save me. Chen Xing devoured the biscuit and tore off some jerky to eat because he was absolutely starving. He decided that a wise man submits to circumstances. Since there was no use in him resisting, he would rack his brains to think of ways to slow down Simu Wei. When Simu Wei was traveling, he wouldn't respond to anything Chen Xing said. This time, he replied in a low voice, he won't. He'll just think you left by yourself. These words struck Chen Xing right in his sore spot. Crap, what if Xiang Shu really thought that way? He had talked about leaving before Xiang Shu went up the mountains after all. It was very possible. Before this, he had also left just like that without saying a word. This was different from Xiang Shu seeing him get abducted with his own eyes. Xiao Shan was sleeping, so no one would tell Xiang Shu that he, Chen Xing, had been captured. During this period of time, Chen Xing has always believed that Xiang Shu has his own responsibilities as the great Chanyu, so he always implied that he would leave whenever they spoke. If Xiang Shu thought that Chen Xing had just left that quietly because he didn't want to say goodbye, he would return to Karakoram himself, and no one would come save Chen Xing anymore. He has to find a way to break free from this predicament himself. A few crows were perched atop a tree. Chen Xing tried to activate his heart lamp a few times, but he didn't sense Xiang Shu. Maybe he was too far away, or maybe he could only accept this helpless reality Xiang Shu wasn't coming to save him. So, Chen Xing could only plan his own resistance. He never stopped scheming along the way, thinking about how to sneak off while this asshole wasn't paying attention. However, Simu Wei neither ate nor slept. Every time they stopped to take a breather, it was for Chen Xing's sake, and they would continue on the road after he was done resting. Chen Xing couldn't find a chance to escape at all. Chen Xing kept trying to fish information out of him, but Simu Wei was tight-lipped and never responded to him. Just like this, they traveled at full speed for 6 days. Simu Wei, get up, we're moving. Chen Xing, where on earth do you want to take me? Simu Wei didn't reply. Chen Xing continued, I want to take a nap. I'm about to become bow-legged from riding on a horse for so long, my feet hurt. So Simu Wei could only let him remain where he was, while he got up by himself to survey the surroundings. Seeing Simu Wei leave the woods, Chen Xing looked around, then turned around and broke into a run. Caw! Caw! The crows suddenly beat their wings and flew up in alarm. Chen Xing rushed right out of the forest and enacted a pursuit scene with Simu Wei. Before one incense stick could finish burning, he was caught in a mountain cave. What awaited him next was him getting bundled like a dumpling and thrown onto the horse before they continued east. They hastened on their journey for close to 10 days. Simu Wei always moved forward along the Great Wall. Every time they stopped, their temporary campsite would always be surrounded with crows. Chen Xing struggled on the horse and said, "Can't you take me to a place where there's people?" Simu Wei took Chen Xing along with him and never entered the passes along the Great Wall. At last, they left the Great Wall and went north, then entered Yuzhu's boundary. Along the way, Chen Xing had seen the Qin army from afar several times. Simu Wei had excellent concealment techniques, he bypassed them and continued heading southeast. By the time he saw the plaques Wojun, Chen Xing knew that they would arrive in Goguryeo territory if they continued southeast. After leaving the central plains, Simu Wei finally relaxed his watch over Chen Xing. "I really won't escape anymore," Chen Xing said. "We're almost at Silla now, I wouldn't be able to find my way back even if I escaped." "Untie me, Simu Wei." Simu Wei replied, "Attempts shouldn't be made more than 3 times." Chen Xing got what he wished for and was finally untied. The two of them entered one of Goguryeu's largest cities, Pyongyang. Most of the residents here are Baiyo people, so a large number of them could understand the Xianbei language. Simu Wei changed into a set of regular clothes that he had found somewhere and kept his armor in his carry-on bundle. Then he wore a conical bamboo hat that covered half of his face. When the Baiyo people saw these two travelers pass by, they would stare at him curiously. Some of them even inquired out of curiosity, so Chen Xing replied to them in the Xianbei language. "What are you two here for?" the Baiyo person asked. "Did you guys come from the Jin country?" Simu Wei asked Chen Xing, "What did they say?" Chen Xing knew Simu Wei didn't understand, so he could make trouble for him however he wanted now. "They asked where we're heading to, Chen Xing said. Simu Wei said, ask them where we can find a boat. So Chen Xing said to the locals in Xianbei language, I was kidnapped by this person. I was taken all the way here from Chi Chuan. People in the city started a lively discussion, and many began to surround them. All of them wore robes of the literati and bamboo hats, dressed in the style of a Confucian scholar. Ever since Sajirim of Goguryeo came to power, the Imperial College of Supreme Learning was established in Pyongyang with the aim of nurturing scholars. From the Han dynasty to the Cao Wei dynasty to the Jin dynasty, the doctrines of Confucianism in the Central Plains have always been admired by many vassal states. All ethnic groups took pride in learning the Han language and reading Han books. This group of scholars had just finished their lessons in the Imperial College. In conformance with the virtue of chivalry where one intervened at the site of injustice, they blocked Simu Wei and Chen Xing's path one after another, scrutinizing this strange combo. One of the scholars asked, how can we save you? Can we be of any help? Simu Wei, what did they say? Chen Xing waved his hand at them. Compared to the other drought fiend kings, Simu Wei's attitude might be much gentler, but Chen Xing didn't know if he would suddenly go mad. If he were to go on a killing spree within the city, it would only harm innocent people and cost them their lives, so he didn't ask for help immediately and explained, this guy is insane, he has killed a lot of people on our way. Everyone, please don't act rashly. Simu Wei. Everyone asked, then what do we do? After speaking, Chen Xing relayed to Simu Wei, they said that the boats won't be leaving anytime soon and asked us to rest in the city. We'll have to check again in a few days. Simu Wei observed the expressions of the crowd, then said to Chen Xing, don't lie to me. Chen Xing, I'm not lying. Simu Wei, they had only said 4 words just now, how could that turn into such long strings of sentences after translation? Chen Xing, that's how Xianbei language is like. Don't you know any Xianbei people? If you think I'm too wordy, then you talk to them. I don't care anymore. Simu Wei, we'll go to the pier to look for a boat. Chen Xing, wait. Chen Xing pondered for a bit, then smiled calmly to the crowd with his hands clasped. Gags, please help me inform the guards in the city. I'll trick him into resting in an inn for a while first. If you bump into anyone asking around for me, please let them know. Simu Wei, what are you saying this time? Chen Xing, I asked them when the boats would set sail. Simu Wei, your tone was clearly descriptive, not inquisitive. Chen Xing asked in the Xianbei language, where are the inns in the city? Someone pointed somewhere far away. Chen Xing signaled to Simu Wei as if to say, see, I'm asking. One of the scholars said, I'll go to the king's guards now to report the situation in detail. Be careful. Chen Xing quickly nodded. Simu Wei. Chen Xing, they said that we'll have to wait for at least 3 to 5 days. Let's go ba. So under everyone's gaze, Chen Xing changed from being a guest to acting as a host and leading Simu Wei away. The two of them passed through a market. Chen Xing was secretly delighted. He knew that Simu Wei must be filled with doubts right now, so he had to think of something to divert his line of thought for now. He pointed at the goods in the stalls and said, do you want to buy some rouge? Simu Wei. Chen Xing said, they seem to be doubting you a little, because your face is blue. Simu Wei. Apply some rouge, Chen Xing said. Cover it a little, do you have money? Take some money out to spend. At the same time, he thought that if some guards came to save him later, he could say he had nothing to do with it. In any case, he just had to say that the crowd of spectators had thought Simu Wei's complexion seemed off, so they reported it to the authorities, and it would all be fine. But Simu Wei didn't expect to spend money here and was penniless. Chen Xing came up with an idea. Your armor can be pawned off for some money, that helmet should be worth quite a lot of money. Simu Wei, you want to pawn off my armor? Chen Xing, what else? Don't we need money to take a boat? And we still need to eat and buy clothes too. Even if you don't need to eat, I do. So Simu Wei was duped by Chen Xing into pawning his helmet off. The two of them successfully found a place to stay. Chen Xing noticed a few crows flying away from the entrance of the store. He had a nagging sensation that he had seen those few crows on their way here. But all crows in the world were generally black and all looked about the same, so he might be wrong. A lightning streak flashed across the sky and thunder boomed. A downpour suddenly started. All the people along the streets rushed to avoid getting drenched. After entering the inn, Chen Xing stopped caring about Simu Wei and instructed a waiter to prepare some hot water for a bath. He felt much better after changing his clothes. I'll help you cover up a little ba. Chen Xing studied Simu Wei and started applying rouge for him to cover up his dead person complexion. Simu Wei closed the 4 windows in the room. Chen Xing mixed the powder, and just when he was about to approach him, Simu Wei grabbed Chen Xing's wrist. "Exorcist, save me!" Simu said in a very soft voice. Chen Xing. When Chen Xing heard that, he almost overturned the rouge plate. Suddenly, he noticed something. He looked up at the huge beam in the room and could vaguely hear the pitter-patter of rain hitting the tiles. "Shihai dispatched the jackdaws to monitor us the whole way," Simu Wei whispered. "I must take you to Huanmo Palace, I have no other choice." Chen Xing, you. Simu Wei. Simu Wei continued, "Long story short, can you use the heart lamp to break the control Shihai has over me?" Chen Xing murmured, "I don't know. You were the Prince Yan of Chu when you were alive, right? Hold on, you've been dead for nearly 100 years, why haven't you entered samsara?" Another crack of thunder exploded. A few rays of white light penetrated through the window. Simu Wei stood up. He paced back and forth within the room, some bewilderment evident in his voice. "I don't know who I am anymore," Simu Wei muttered to himself. "I only remember a few fragmented pieces of my memory from when I was alive. I have the memories of a lot of people, and the most fragments I have come from Simu Wei, but I just know that I'm different from them." "Them?" Chen Xing asked. "How many of the 8 princes have been revived?" "The Simu Lun they saw in Chang'an City, Simu Yu in the north, and including Simu Wei, this was the 3rd drought fiend King Chen Xing has seen." 6, Simu Wei said. "Shihai wants to capture you and use resentment to refine the heart lamp magical artifact on you, turning it into the eye of the 10,000 spirits array, to offer as a sacrifice to the devil god." Chen Xing immediately said, "What's the 10,000 spirits array?" "There are 7 10,000 spirits array," Simu Wei said. "I only heard a little from their conversation. They are all driven by magical artifacts that absorb resentment. When the 7 arrays are activated at the same time, the devil god will come back to life. He awakened us 8 princes to guard the arrays for him." Chen Xing turned quiet. Simu Wei continued, "Yin Yang Mirror, Zhang Drum, they were all set up by Shihai. 2 have already fallen into your hands. As for the 10,000 spirits array, I only know that one is in Chang'an." Chen Xing jumped to his next question. "What about the other magical artifacts?" Simu Wei shook his head. Evidently, even he didn't know much inside information. Chen Xing asked again, "Where is Shihai hiding?" Simu Wei shook his head again slowly. Chen Xing said, "What can I do for you?" "Simu Wei, can you kill him?" "As long as you kill him, I can be liberated." Chen Xing didn't even know what kind of Yao Shihai was, let alone ascertain where that guy was hiding. Killing him was easier said than done. "Shihai asked you to take me back to the Central Plains, so didn't he arrange for a meeting place?" Chen Xing asked again. Simu Wei looked up at the roof and replied, "The jackdaws will keep an eye on my movements at all times. After entering the Central Plains, he would naturally dispatch people to come find us." Chen Xing raised his hand, signaling to Simu Wei to give him some time to think. 10,000 spirits array, Shihai, devil god, magical artifacts. Simu Wei continued, now we're still far from Shihai, and his control over me has been weakened by the distance. You have to find a way to free me. What then? Chen Xing said. After you're free, what do you want to do? Simu Wei murmured, I don't know. In any case, I don't want to be enslaved by him like this anymore. Chen Xing said, I can try, I'm just afraid that I won't be able to do it. Without the support of the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth, the heart lamp's powers are limited. What Simu Wei told him had pierced straight through whatever Chen Xing thought to be true before. Within an instant, Chen Xing understood it all. Right afterwards, he heard the crows on the roof caw again. He's beginning to have doubts. Simu Wei got up and pulled the windows open. Torrential rain beat down relentlessly and drenched the windowsill, so both of them stopped talking. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. Shining white water curtains could be seen everywhere. Chen Xing wanted to get close to the windowsill to take a look, but Simu Wei made a gesture from a place light didn't touch. The crows were perched right under the edge of the tiles, staring at them. Let me go, Chen Xing mouthed to Simu Wei. Simu Wei didn't reply. He glanced at Chen Xing, both his eyes appearing turbid. Chen Xing couldn't determine what he was thinking for a moment, but amidst the pitter-patter of rain, the soft clanging of weapons was faintly discernible. He closed both eyes, pondering the links between all this. Suddenly, the heart lamp flashed in the darkness. Simu Wei stared at Chen Xing quietly. A thought surfaced in Chen Xing's mind, what about doing it now? He had never tried injecting the power of the heart lamp into a drought fiend king, or even a living corpse before. Would he be able to dispel the resentment in their bodies if he did that? And after dispelling it, would it forcibly break Shiha's control and connection to them? Or would it burn their bodies to ashes? A gentle ball of light appeared in Chen Xing's hand. He raised it. Simu Wei spun around and faced Chen Xing. His hand reached for his weapon. It seemed he was subconsciously afraid of that light, yet he was doing his utmost to refrain from attacking Chen Xing. Chen Xing took a deep breath. But right at that moment, a loud sound rang out. Xiang Shu, along with his sword, smashed through the brick wall from next door and hurtled in. Get down! Xiang Shu shouted. Heart lamp! The jackdaws outside the room began cawing madly. Simu Wei unsheathed his sword. Chen Xing withdrew his heart lamp. The moment he bowed his head, Xiang Shu's sword swept past from above Chen Xing's back, aiming right at Simu Wei. Simu Wei wasn't wearing his armor. The sword struck him in his chest, and his ribs caved in with a muffled thud. He was knocked out of the window from the impact, flying like a kite that had its string cut. Then another bang sounded. He had smashed through the roof of a house outside the inn, which collapsed with a rumble. Chen Xing looked up, his gaze meeting with Xiang Shu's. Xiang Shu was dressed in hunting attire from head to toe and looked just like a savage. His entire body was drenched, and both his eyes were thoroughly red. It was clear that he hadn't slept much while chasing them for nearly 10 days. Xiang Shu didn't go over to the window to take a look either. He wrapped his left arm around Chen Xing, took a step back, jumped off from a crouch and smashed through the roof to fly out. Tumultuous rain poured, as if a hole had opened up in the sky. Chen Xing was soaked from head to toe. While being dragged by Xiang Shu, his foot slipped. The jackdaws all unfurled their wings and flew up one after another, but their movements were sluggish in this downpour. The sound of crossbows rang out all around them. The warriors sent by Goguryeo were all covering Xiang Shu and Chen Xing as they left. When did you come? Chen Xing shouted. Just now. Xiang Shu shouted back. As soon as Chen Xing turned his head, he saw a grey figure fly out from the place it fell on with a whoosh and brandish a long saber. It was Simu Wei dressed in a grey robe. Wherever the chi wave brushed by, tiles overturned and swirled in the air. Xiang Shu held Chen Xing and turned sideways, then both of them slid down from the edge of the roof. Along the way, arrows fell like rain and blotted out the sky within moments, blocking Simu Wei's path. Watch out for the crows. Can you run? Xiang Shu shouted. Chen Xing, I can. I can. Both of them were thoroughly drenched. Chen Xing was overwhelmed with joy from the bottom of his heart. You finally came. I just knew you'd come. When he grabbed Xiang Shu's hand, all of his worries vanished without a trace, and he just ran with him in the rain. Xiang Shu turned back and looked at the direction Simu Wei was chasing them from. Ordinary archers couldn't hope to stop him, so he could only lure him to a place where there weren't as many people around. I can't run anymore. Chen Xing was about to breathe his last. He shouted, run while carrying me ba. Xiang Shu. Simu Wei let out a loud shout. With both hands wielding his sword, he suddenly came down from high above, taking a shortcut as he slid down a roof in the alley. Right after, another Goguryeo warrior rushed over and blocked the entrance of the alley, shouting, leave, quickly. Chen Xing couldn't help but feel moved. Xiang Shu had already saved the person he wanted to save, so he didn't bother to continue the fight. He rushed out of the small alley with Chen Xing in tow, but a large number of cavalry appeared in front of them. Just as Chen Xing was processing his surprise, thinking that there were more enemies to face, the armored person at the front pointed to the left, signaling for them to run in that direction. Then, the cavalry all brandished their weapons, ready to start charging into the alley. How did you know I was captured? I thought you wouldn't come. You're going to be the death of me. Xiang Shu wiped off the water on his face and roared angrily at Chen Xing. Thunder clapped with a loud boom. Chen Xing didn't hear what he just said and smiled as he asked Xiang Shu, what? What did you say? Xiang Shu, my throat hurts. I'm not talking to you. The two of them rushed across the long street, facing the torrential downpour. Suddenly everything was emptied, revealing a level pier with a radius of several miles. A ship was currently pulling up its anchor and unfolding its sails to leave the harbor, trying to set sail by force in this thunderstorm. Xiang Shu looked back. Chen Xing asked again, who was that just now? You know him. King Goguryeo. Xiang Shu casually replied. He placed his sword on his back and carried Chen Xing bridal style. Simu Wei, with his drenched robe dragging behind him, leapt a few times in the alley outside the pier. Like a water bomb, brilliant splashes trailed behind him, and with every time he stepped onto a brick wall, the wall would be smashed into flying pieces with a loud rumble. He accelerated a few times, each time stirring up a strong gust of wind, then swung his long saber and shot towards Xiang Shu and Chen Xing. Xiang Shu took a few steps as a run-up, and with Chen Xing in his arms, he stepped onto a wooden box in the pier and crushed the box into pieces. With one leap, he flew towards the ship that was 3 zhang away. As soon as Xiang Shu and Chen Xing left the ground, Simu Wei had already swung his blade down with a force that could shake the heavens. The air behind him exploded, and when he struck the ground, the floor tiles were smashed into powder. Meanwhile, Chen Xing was carried by Xiang Shu amidst this earth-shaking chaos, flying from the pier to the huge ship on the sea. Simu Wei didn't land the hit. Xiang Shu and Chen Xing somersaulted in midair and fell on deck, then slid nearly a zhang away. The boatmen on the ship pulled back with a whoosh, all of them staring at the two of them in amazement. Chen Xing was seeing stars from the heavy impact. He struggled to get up. Xiang Shu, with his sword as support, barely managed to sit up and kept gasping for breath. Water droplets dripped from all over his body. Simu Wei leapt onto the highest roof in front of the pier and stared at the two of them leaving on the ship. Chen Xing, who? Xiang Shu slowly got up. Chen Xing slipped on the deck. He went to the side of the ship and stared at Simu Wei, his heart welling up with complicated emotions. He finally stopped chasing us, Chen Xing panted. The Goguryeo warriors had already surrounded that house in a tight encirclement. Simu Wei stood on the roof, unyielding. With his left hand locked on the hilt of his sword, his right wrist tilted horizontally, and a gathering storm surged around his body. A pillar of resentment soared into the sky. Xiang Shu. At this moment, the ship was nearly 50 steps away from Simu Wei. The boatman on the ship started turning the crossbow and pointed into the distance, but Simu Wei wasn't phased. The resentment on that sword converged into a black crescent-shaped arc, and along with him drawing a circle with his sword, it was gathering an extremely strong and terrifying force. As long as he swung it down, it would shoot over with a whoosh and cut this huge ship in two. Another lightning bolt flashed, its dazzling light illuminating the horrified expressions of everyone both inside and outside the pier. Xiang Shu raised his sword and said in a deep voice, "Give me all of your mana." "No, no, no." Chen Xing immediately refused. "We're gonna die. Don't mess around like that. This ship will be crushed." As long as Simu Wei waves his sword, whether or not Xiang Shu could resist it was one thing. Even if this ship didn't get crushed, it would still be overturned by the waves. Chen Xing cried out in a panic, "Don't act recklessly. Anything will do, I uppiter. Save me." Simu Wei raised his long saber, and just when he was about to release a strike that would shatter the heavens, a lightning streak flashed in the sky. Boom! Thunder clapped, a lightning bolt struck down and was lured by the long saber of Simu Wei, who was standing in an elevated place. Within an instant, the entire house was struck into pieces by the lightning. Simu Wei's body was burnt into a crisp, and he fell backwards. The gathered resentment exploded on the spot and vanished without a trace. Chen Xing murmured, "Ah, it came right on time, that's great. Didn't I ask you not to act recklessly? Now see, you just got struck by lightning." Then he lost all of his strength, slipped down from the side of the ship and sat on the deck. End chapter.